Happy Father's Day from Birch Creek Golf Course. For Dad this Father's Day, choose Birch Creek. Punch passes, gift certificates, and range passes are on sale for Father's Day and can be purchased online at birchcreekgolf.com, with all purchases mailed to you for Father's Day. So for Dad this Father's Day, I invite you to choose birchcreekgolf.com or stop in the pro shop today. And happy Father's Day from your friends at Birch Creek Golf Course in Smithville.
Clay Travis. In 50 years, we have gone from Woodstock, wildness, rebellion, to now we have such a consensus culture among our youth who are the most sheep-like of any generation that has ever existed.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, inspired by Rush. Debuting June 21st.
Weekdays from 10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
The following is a paid program of commercial time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims are solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees. It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What'd life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you into a beautiful Father's Day weekend as we have sunny skies. And, wow, it's going to be another hot one. We'll talk about that because, of course, this drought just not letting up, and it is really making it difficult to keep that lawn watered, the garden watered. And joining us on the line this morning is Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden. I guess we'll say you're on assignment, right, Mark?
That's correct. So currently out of the valley, but not so far away that we can't still do the radio show, so that works.
Glad to have you joining us from Anderson Seed and Garden. Of course, Mark Anderson. I'm Will Feelwright, covering for Cody, who is also on an assignment today. We're going to call that a fishing assignment, is what I'm pretty sure that is. And glad to do it.
Sounds like Cody.
Yeah, he needs a little fishing time. And so we need some time out in the yard because over the last few days, I was out last night, and it just seems like everything I do, it's not doing any good trying to take care of those grasshoppers. They are everywhere this year, Mark.
Oh, it's a big explosion of insects all over, whether it's grasshoppers or aphids, or we're even seeing army worms defoliating trees over in the Mendon, Wellsville area. So there's a lot of insect activity going on, and there's some things we can really do to keep the grasshoppers under control. But I'll tell you, in my garden, things are growing like crazy, so that the heat's not great for us, and it's hard on our watering, but the plants are growing like crazy. I've got tomatoes that are growing 2 or 3 inches a day right now. They're just really growing like crazy, and my corn popped out of the ground in like no time, and the beans are growing and starting to run as well too, and not the cucumbers, but my cantaloupes are starting to run already, which is great. They're usually a little bit farther behind, but they're taking off like crazy. So it's really nice, I guess, exciting to see how quickly the plants are growing, because it is hot, but just definitely makes it hard to keep the water on the plants.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. We have had a number of people in our neighborhood. Everybody's talking about, okay, how do you water best? How do you at least try to keep your lawn at least somewhat watered? And for most of us, we're kind of focusing our efforts on our gardens, letting our lawns just kind of go a little bit, because we're just wanting to keep a lot of that extra water on those gardens, especially as plants are getting started. We were a little late this year because of a family vacation getting our garden in, and our corn is just starting to come up as I was looking at it last night. And so it's
the corn's. I was going to say the corn is definitely temperature sensitive, and so the warmer it is, the faster it comes along. So if you've planted, like, say, a 75-day corn, and we consistently are up in the 90s, corn will come along a lot faster. So instead of being 75 days, it might actually come in about 65 days because it just matures a lot quicker when the soil's warmer and the ground temperature is warmer, and you see some really quick, fast production come along that way. So there's some things you can definitely do to keep the water green, the lawn green without having to water quite so much. And one of the great services that our extension, USU Extension offers here in Cache County is a kind of a water analysis on your sprinklers, and so they'll do it for free. And all you got to do is call in and schedule that with them, and they'll send an intern out, and they'll place containers around your yard and run your sprinklers through a cycle and see how much water they're applying and where your deficiencies are. And so they can really help you get your sprinklers set to a proper watering schedule, so you're not overwatering, so you're not underwatering, and really get you locked in at what you ought to be doing throughout the summer to keep your lawn looking green and good. And then, of course, there's no mandatory restrictions in the valley as of yet, but whatever anyone can do to try and cut back on their water usage would be great. Yeah. And there's some amazing products out there that can really help you keep your lawn green and looking good without watering as much as you have in the past. So it'll help your soil absorb and retain the moisture a lot longer, and be able to eliminate probably 30 to 40% of the water that you have applied in the past, and still keep your lawn looking equally as good. Of course, I'm referring to Hydrotain. And that's a product we've been telling everybody about this year, and how amazing it is at helping your soil absorb, retain that moisture, so your plants, and especially your lawn, your turf can get the water that it needs and keep the lawn looking really good. So got some great options out there for water conservation to try and help with that. But especially, like you said, we got to talk about bugs and try and figure out how to keep the grasshoppers under control.
Yeah, and we need to talk a little bit about Father's Day and some great gift ideas over at Anderson Seed and Garden. And along with that, taking calls this morning as they're already coming in. Phone lines are open for you at 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868. And Mark, we can start out on the phone lines this morning with Mike, who is joining us. Mike, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Hi, thanks for having me. You just, perfect segue. You talked about grasshopper control. So I've been using EcoBrand, and it's almost impossible to get this year. So I was going to try to use something else, but I'm concerned about just spraying 7 and getting beneficial insects. So I was wondering, would it be possible to make my own EcoBrand by mixing 7 with Brand and then drying it out and spraying it? Or what are some other good ideas?
The Bran Flake bait option works great when their food source really starts to dry up. And right now we still have a lot of green fields, and we still have a lot of green grass, and especially if they've gotten into your yard, a lot of green plants there for them to eat. And so if they have this choice between a Bran Flake and a lush green bean plant, they're going to go after that bean every single time and just kind of forget about the bait. And so, the bait's very effective. It would be difficult for you to get that mixed properly and applied to the Bran Flake to make that work. We do have some very effective baits available at the store, but if you want to go with something that's a little, I guess, a lot less toxic, but still very, very effective. And I just did my garden this week because I saw a lot of little small hoppers hopping around. There were some holes showing up in my beans and in my potatoes, and I know they're going to start moving to other stuff as well too. I use a repellent, and the repellent works amazingly well. It's made from cedar oil, and cedar oil is a natural repellent for most insects. It won't bother your beneficials. It won't bother lady beetles, won't bother praying mantis, won't bother bees, but it works on a lot of these damaging insects, and especially grasshoppers. And it comes in a granule form. You can just broadcast up and down your rows, in between the plants, and it just makes your garden smell like cedar. And it kind of works on the same principle that a cedar chest would. and it will make the grasshoppers leave and just go somewhere else. So you can do a perimeter treatment around your property to keep them from just even coming into your yard. You can use it strategically in your flower beds or in your garden where you need to get them to move on somewhere else. Works on mosquitoes, works on all kinds of different beetles, and it just makes them leave and go somewhere else. But it works really effectively on flying insects. So moths that are coming in and laying their eggs on your plants, they'll just make the moths go somewhere else, lay their eggs in a different location. So we've had amazing results with the granule form is called Lawn Shield, and it's safe to use around vegetables and fruits since it's just cedar oil. And it does come in a liquid form as well, too. The liquid form has some added ingredients in it to help repel mosquitoes. And so I think it's got some citronella and some geranium oil and some other stuff in there as well, too. But it has a fair dose of the cedar oil in there as well, too. And, boy, that does a great job. You just have to be a little careful using it right on your vegetables because all those oils will flavor your fruits. And so I keep it off of the plants that I'm going to be harvesting anytime in the near future, within 2 or 3 weeks, because it can flavor, like, say, your tomatoes or your peppers. And so I kind of keep it away from those. And I just spray the perimeter of the garden, and then I'll spray the plants that I'm not going to be eating, tops the potatoes, tops the carrots, corn stalks. I'm not going to be eating those. Doesn't bother me at all. But I keep it off the cucumbers and tomatoes for sure, because we'll be consuming those, whenever they get ready. So that's a really great option for you as well too, to keep the grasshoppers off without having to try and make your own bait. So.
Awesome. Thanks for that. It's good to know I have some options and I don't have to give up with the grasshoppers winning the war. So thank you.
Yes. You are so welcome. Did a little video the other day for the Valley Channel that we'll be posting on our website and probably putting on Facebook as well too. And if your garden's not too big, another option that works great is to use a seed guard, and it's like frost cloth, but it's a little bit thinner, and it will work with frost. But it's great for keeping the insects off of your plants as well too. So if you get a little bit of a PVC hoop or a metal hoop, you can put right down the rows of your vegetables, and then support the cloth over the plants. Stake it down, of course, so the insects can't get underneath it. But as long as the insects can't get onto your plants, they won't be eating them. And this is a really thin, fine cloth, keeps the insects off, but it will allow the water and the sunlight to go through, and so your plants will grow like crazy. It's almost like making your own little mini greenhouse that's got good ventilation, because it'll allow the air to pass through as well too, but it'll keep the bugs off. And so we built a little small tunnel for my beans the other day on our video to show how you can use that fine lightweight cloth to protect your plants and also encourage some growth as well too, without having to use an insecticide as well too. So if your garden's not too big, or if you're just trying to protect specific plants, that would be a great option, as well as the 7 and other insecticides if we have to get more serious about it.
All right. Thanks again. Looks like I'll be driving to the store in a little bit.
Hey, thanks for calling this morning, Mike. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
And that frees up the phone lines at 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868. Mike brings up a great question when using that cedar oil repellent Lawn Shield. About how long will that last before you need to apply it again?
It lasts about 2 weeks, and so I usually make my first application around the middle part of June, which is right now, and it will last until about the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. So then I'll do another application right after the 4th. That'll get me, close to Pioneer Day, maybe even the end of the month. And at that point, then I can decide if I want to, use it one more time, or if I'm not too worried about the bugs at that point, I can, share a little bit with them. Then I won't make that third application. But it really does a great job. Very, very safe to use. You get 2, maybe 3 weeks of protection out of it. And it just makes those insects leave and go somewhere else. And I forgot to mention, hey, happy Father's Day, Mike. I appreciate you calling in today. And we got Father's Day tomorrow, so don't forget about those important fathers in your life this weekend. Let's make sure and honor them as well too. So Other options for the grasshoppers, of course, Mike mentioned the 7 spray or bait works very, very effectively. So there's a new formulation of 7, which is lower toxicity than the past formula of 7, which was available for probably, I'd say, maybe 60 years, has been around. But the new formulation is even less toxic for people, very, very effective on the insects, very safe for the environment, breaks down very, very fairly quickly, but very, very effective on grasshoppers of all sizes. And we've also had really great results with permethrin, also safe to use on fruits and vegetables, and very effective, but also quite safe for people and for pets. It's labeled for use on dogs for fleas and ticks. So very safe for the pets to use, not to use, but to be around as well after you have used it in your yard. The key with the insecticides is to make sure and spray in the evening when everybody's gone home, including your beneficial insects. And by the time everybody's out and about the next day, things have dried, and it's a lot more stable. It's going to stay right where you apply it. If you're concerned about bees, just make sure and not spray the flowers, because the bees are really only going to land in the flowers. If it's a perennial like a catmint, or if it's a vegetable like a squash or a cucumber, they're only going to land on the flowers. So if you can avoid spraying the flowers, you won't be bothering your bees at all, and it'll do a great job. So permethrin, bifenthrin's excellent. Also, the 7, you've got some very good, effective, but very safe, low toxicity type insecticides. If you want to go with a natural one, really probably Triple Action from Fertilome is one of the best ones. It's got neem oil and pyrethrum in there. It doesn't have as long a residual. You really got to get after the grasshoppers while they're small, because when they get bigger, it's not going to work very well on them. But the 7, the permethrin, and the bifenthrin will knock those grasshoppers down, even if they're big. They're big guys, and they're doing a lot of damage out there in your yard. So hopefully that'll help your garden as well.
I was going to say, I spent the night last night for about an hour spraying a field. Our property butts up right against a horse pasture, and so there's this 20-foot barrier between my garden and the horse pasture, and in the past it's always just been infested with grasshoppers. So I went out there, hit it real hard with the 7, and I thought, all right, I'm doing really good. Then I walk into my lawn and I'm thinking, there's more grasshoppers in my lawn than there was out in the field. Maybe I should have hit my lawn instead. And so
the lawn as well. Hit both.
So that's going to be today's project, is doing the lawn.
Very aggressive on the insects, and I've just seen sample after sample after sample of the aphids going crazy on cherry trees, and they're really very, very aggressive this year as well too. We've struggled to get ladybugs in stock, so I got my fingers crossed that we're going to get another batch of ladybugs in this week, because the ladybugs do an awesome job on the aphids. Get those under control. But just cherry trees, the tips of the branches are all just curled up and have turned black because they're just like completely covered with aphids, and we're seeing just lots of insect outbreaks, whether it's aphids or whether it's the grasshoppers, or like I said, in Mendon, I was out there about 2 weeks ago, and there's an infestation of armyworms that are just defoliating the native maples over there on the foothills in Mendon. And they'll hatch out on the tree, they'll crawl up into the branches, and they'll just eat every single leaf off the tree. And then once the leaves are all gone, the caterpillars will realize that there's no leaves left on the tree, and they're still hungry, and they will actually drop off of the trees onto the ground, and then they'll crawl towards the next tree, the next victim, I guess, and they'll crawl up the trunk of the tree, get up into the branches, and start eating again. It's just crazy how quickly they can defoliate a tree. And we're not talking just a handful of caterpillars. We're talking thousands of caterpillars on each tree. So the adult moths have come in and laid their eggs on those trees over there, because those maple leaves are quite delicious. They're a little sweet. They've got that sugary sap in them, and they're just munching those leaves to pieces. There are some excellent very, very effective natural insecticides that you can use to knock those caterpillars down that won't hurt any other insects. And so my number one choice is a product called Spinosad, and the Spinosad is a natural bacteria. And that bacteria is very, very effective at controlling caterpillars and the larval stages of a lot of different insects. But it won't hurt lady beetles, it won't hurt bees, it won't hurt praying mantis. It's very, very effective on caterpillars, and almost instantaneously it'll knock them down. So there are some very, very good options out there. Whether you use the same products like you're using for the grasshoppers, Sevin or permethrin, or bifenthrin, they'll all work great. I really, really like the Bug Blaster from High Yield. But if you want to go with an all-natural, organic option that's safe for people, safe for pets, only affects caterpillars, the Spinosad is the way to go, and it'll do a really great job on those armyworms if you happen to have some nibbling on your trees.
All right, Mark, thank you so much. Hold on here just a second. We've got more calls coming in. In fact, the phone lines are full. And so let's go back out. Jan has been holding on the line. Jan, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Good morning. Some 2 years ago, we were able to go onto, I believe it was either KVNU's website or the Anderson Seed and Garden, and find previous podcasts that we could listen to. Are those still available?
Mark,
that's a great question.
Yes, they are actually. Mark, I can take this question for you. In fact, we over the last few months, we have completely relaunched kvnutalk.com, and the shows are now podcasted there. And so if you go to kvnutalk.com, right along the very top, you're going to see a banner, and that will give you access to the podcast library. Now, if you're a fan of the Google Store or Apple iTunes or Stitcher or any of those podcast libraries, you can actually subscribe also. And so that way, every time a show is uploaded, you'll automatically receive notification that, there is a brand new Garden Guide show, and you can just pull it down and listen to it. So there's a number of ways to be able to access the program. The only, I guess we could say, the only drawback to this brand new library that offers us all of these abilities of being able to put the show out in numerous locations is that all of the old shows that were archived back are no longer there. So this is just for everything going forward. So
I'm sure excited about that. But boy, some of those older shows were wonderful, and so they're for sure gone.
Well, they're not gone. They aren't able to be sent out to iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher and things of that nature.
So the technology has changed a little bit.
Yeah. So if you go to kvnutalk.com, you can actually listen to the shows there. You can also subscribe to them there. You can, like I said, if you're a fan of Apple iTunes or Google Play, search for KVNU On Demand and then look for the Garden Guide. The Garden Guide is actually a separate series, so that if you're just wanting Garden Guide or if you're a fan of the Trading Post, you can actually subscribe to any one of those shows and automatically be notified. So as soon as this show is done, this coming up at 10 o'clock, and the show is uploaded, you'll get a notification. It usually takes an hour or two for Apple, iTunes, and everyone else to notify you that the show is up. But yeah, kvnutalk.com, and just right along the very top menu bar, you'll see an on-demand feature, and you can access them there.
Hey,
we
I am
started
so excited.
recording the shows.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Mark, I cut you off there for a second.
I was going to say, we started recording the shows the first of the year, so we should have all the shows from March when we started up.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
and a lot of those old shows also we've got in archive too. They just Apple and Google, they have these policies. They don't just let you dump 3 years of audio out there, because what would happen is if someone was subscribed to a particular series, all of a sudden they would have 3 years of audio just being sent to their phone, and yeah, you can see kind of the problem that would run us into. So, Jan, thank you so much for the call, and let's go back out to the phone lines if that's okay. We have, let's see, next up is Diane, who is joining us on the Garden Guide. Jan, you're on with Mark. Go ahead. Or, excuse me, Diana. Diana, sorry.
Okay, Mark, I have a question about the apple tree. How often or how many times do we spray the apple tree for the bugs, the worms? They get
for the
apples.
codling moth. Yep, great question. So our first application should have happened first week, second week of June. And depending on what product you're using, you want to spray about every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the summertime. And usually Utah State Extension will trap the adult codling moth, and so they'll give us some target dates for the second and the third hatching. But as of right now, they're recommending that you keep a cover spray on there throughout June. And so if you sprayed the first week of June, I would make sure and do a second application, usually about 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks after that, depending on which product you use. So most of the products that are available to homeowners will only last about 2 weeks. 7 lasts about 18 to 20 days. And so, that's almost a 3-week interval on that one. And, just make sure and do that second application sometime here this coming week would probably be a great time to go ahead and do that. And then we'll watch and see what USU Extension says for the second hatch. I would be surprised if it wasn't around the 4th of July for that second hatch. And so then we'll want to do a spray right around that same time to try and control that second hatching of codling moth. And that's the worms that get into the apples and the pears specifically. But right now we need to spray for cherry fruit flies. Have you got a cherry tree too, Diana?
No, we don't.
No cherries, but for those listeners that are concerned about their cherries, when they start to color up, when your cherries start to show a little bit of color, that's the time to spray your cherries as well too. And we just got our cherry tree sprayed here just probably 5-6 days ago, and so it's a perfect time to get the cherries as well as the codling moth larva as well. So
great. Okay. Thank you.
All right. You are so welcome. Thanks for calling this morning. You have a wonderful weekend.
And Diana, thank you for the call. That frees up the phone lines as we head into the bottom of the hour break. Mark, we still need to talk about Father's Day, talk more about how to be able to take care of your lawn during these hot summer days, as we are under a red flag warning, and we'll talk about that coming up in this news break. And we'll be right back with more of your calls for the KVNU Garden Guide. Phone lines are open at 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868. The Garden Guide returns coming up in just a minute. 30 minutes after the hour, I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update. It's brought to you by Chim Chimney. Well, due to current and forecasted weather conditions, coupled with record dry vegetation circumstances and extreme fire danger throughout Utah, fire restrictions have been issued for much of the state. The two separate orders apply to all state lands and federal lands within the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forest. Cache County Fire Chief Rod Hammer said the local conditions are really serious and much drier than previous years. He explained what is prohibited under the state order.
Any campfire, open fire, is prohibited throughout the area that we've discussed. Smoking is also prohibited outside of vehicles. So, again, we see fires from smoking embers, that kind of thing. No cutting, welding, or grinding in areas of dry vegetation. And then, of course, operating equipment like motorcycles, chainsaws, ATVs, any internal combustion engine that can throw off sparks or have heat on the manifold, they just have to have a working spark arrestor.
Meanwhile, a federal order has also been issued by the U.S. Forest Service for national forest lands. It prohibits fires, campfires, and charcoal briquettes, except in designated areas. It also limits smoking outside a vehicle or building. And a southwestern Idaho couple who won $50,000 playing the Idaho Lottery last spring has defied the odds by winning an additional $200,000 this month. Idaho Lottery officials say that Diane Chavez and her husband won the latest prize after purchasing a ticket in Nampa, Idaho, where they live. Lottery officials say the chances of winning the $200,000 prize from a scratch ticket is 1 in 170,000. Well, a red flag warning remaining in effect as we have hot and dry conditions continuing. Daytime temps are going to stay right around the mid to low 90s. Overnight temperatures around the low 60s. We'll feel right for KVNU News.
From ABC Sports. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Ant. Just when it appeared the Jazz and Clippers would be heading to a Game 7, Paul George and Terrence Mann helped Los Angeles pull off one of the most memorable comebacks in NBA history.
George to the rim, try to kick it out, does. Extra feed, Mann, near side corner, takes the time, takes the three, and hits.
The call on KLAC, trailing by 22 at the half. Mann went off for a game-high 39 points in place of the injured Kawhi Leonard. PG-13 added 28, and the Clippers used a 75-40 run to stun the Jazz 131-119. LA advances to their first ever Western Conference Final. They'll face the Suns. After blowing leads in back-to-back games, the 76ers flipped the script on the Hawks in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Semis.
Down the near side, Curry, another shot for three, and that's good.
On WPEN, Philly held off Atlanta 104-99 to force a Game 7 tomorrow night. This is ABC.
Every year when Father's Day weekend rolls around, you can count on
the Preston Elks Lodge Demolition Derby. This Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Preston Rodeo Arena. Buy tickets on the Preston Elks Derby Facebook or pay cash only at the gate. Just $10 for adults, $5 if you're over 60 or under 12. All proceeds benefit local families in Utah and Idaho. The Preston Elks Lodge Demolition Derby, Saturday at 7 at the Preston Rodeo Arena.
The Elements lunch menu is full of delicious items prepared with a personal touch at an affordable price. Elements wood-fired pizzas and calzones are an excellent choice for lunch that include barbecue chicken, classic pepperoni, or the whiteout with garlic cream, parmesan, house ricotta, and fresh mozzarella. From batter to order halibut with seasoned fries to the fan favorite Thai shrimp curry and more. Lunch at Elements is also available for takeout. Casual or professional. Open Monday through Saturday for lunch and dinner. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations.
You shine a spotlight on something that's cool enough to turn your head. Here's the truck that will turn your head on the road if it hasn't already. It's the 2021 Ram 1500, and now's the time to buy. Call it the Ram Spotlight Sales Event all month at Heritage. Save up to $3,500 on 2021 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab, the Motor Trend Truck of the Year, 3 years running. No big deal, but actually it is a big deal at Heritage, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
Heritage Auto Group. Heritage, it's what drives our future.
It's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
And welcome back to the show. We'll feel right in for Cody on this beautiful, hot Saturday morning. And Mark Anderson joining us on the line as he is out of the studio today, but taking your calls as he is calling in remotely. And we're talking about insects so far this morning, how to be able to treat your lawn and your garden during these hot summer days. And the sad part is, Mark, we're not even in summer yet. Summer's tomorrow. We're still in spring, but it's felt like summer the last couple of weeks, hasn't it?
It sure has, you know, and first day of summer is always one of those that we like to celebrate because finally, you know, the heat's here and we can get outside and enjoy, you know, the warm temperatures and maybe hit the pool or go to Bear Lake or, you know, whatever it is. And this year it kind of started a little bit early, so it's definitely been warm. But it's you know, it's not too late to plant anything in the garden. You know, things are just popping right out of the ground. So I'm ready to do my second crop of corn here shortly, and you know, it's nice to be able to plant another batch of corn, you know, 2 or 3 weeks after that first set, and then have corn coming on a little bit later. You know, so we've planted corn and bush beans as late as, you know, 4th of July, 10th of July, so you can have a nice crop coming on in September. and so it's definitely not too late to be planting anything. Still have a lot of great plants in the greenhouse. We've put all of our vegetables and flowers on sale, so it's a great time to come into Anderson's, see what plants we've got available. We've got some gorgeous perennials that just came in this week. I've got some new sunflowers that, if you like sunflowers, these are called Sunbelievable, and they really are unbelievable flowers. Each one of these Sunbelievable sunflowers will produce 1,000 flowers. So they'll produce upward of 1,000 flowers on each plant. They get about 2 feet by 3 feet, and just amazing. Once they get going, they will just produce flower after flower after flower. You can cut them and bring them inside and enjoy them. And those just arrived this week as well too. So lots of perennials. Just got a really nice selection of shrubs that came in this week. Actually, just came in yesterday, and we're kind of low on trees still, but greenhouses still have some nice flowers and some nice vegetables as well if you want to fill in some gaps there. And all of our annual flowers and vegetables are on sale this weekend, so you can't beat that. But Father's Day is coming up, so anything on your wish list, Will?
Actually, some more grasshopper insecticide. That's what I'm going to be heading by the store today.
A new sprayer. That's what you need.
Yep. And then you brought up a good point with trees and shrubs. As you get those planted, and this is one thing that we've kind of focused on, is as we are trying to cut back a little bit on watering, we're focusing a lot of our watering just on our young trees. We put in a peach tree and an apricot and a pear tree recently, and so we're watering those a little more than we normally would, just because they're just not getting a lot of water from the sprinklers like they normally would. And then also, I guess, with those shrubs that you were to put in, if you were putting in some shrubs or some young plants, you want to give those a few extra waterings to help get them started?
Yeah, so be careful not to overwater with those newly planted trees. So I planted a couple peaches, actually a peach and an apricot this spring, and then I just planted 4 trees in my yard and 5 pretty good-sized shrubs as well too. And so when we first planted those, and I'm building a kind of not a video but a photo planting guide that kind of walks you through the whole process of planting a new tree or a new shrub, and how to dig the hole and what to prep the soil with. But I dug my hole nice and wide, like 3 times wider than the pot, and then I worked some really nice soil into the soil that I pulled out of the hole. So I used a tree transplanting mix, worked that right into the soil, and then when I planted, I backfill with that nice conditioned soil that will hold moisture a lot longer than a regular soil would, and saturated it really well with a root stimulator like Kanga Roots. I use the Kanga Roots every time I transplant anything, so I saturated that really well. And I planted, like I said, 4 trees on Monday, and then I planted a bunch of shrubs on Wednesday as well too, and they are still staying moist from when I watered them, and so I gave them a good deep watering to start off with. I think it was about 4 or 5 days afterwards I finally had to go back in and start watering some of those other trees that have been in for a little bit longer. So make sure and water them thoroughly with each watering, but let them kind of dry out a little bit in between. So I'll dig down 2 or 3 inches. If it's still moist down 2 or 3 inches, I'll let them go another day or two, and I won't water them until it dries out down 2 or 3 inches, and then it's time to saturate that soil again. But like you said, it's great that we're focusing on keeping our landscape looking good, and our plants and our newly planted trees and shrubs and vegetables. And it's okay to let the lawn stress a little bit. The lawn will recover quite nicely, and it's made to go dormant when there's not as much water. So most everyone's lawns are very, very drought tolerant. They just don't stay green when they're going dormant. They'll just kind of yellow up a little bit. So it's all right to back off on the water a little bit. But like I said, if we use products like Hydrotain or the Back to Green, there's a lot of different things we can do to really get that water to be absorbed and to help the soil absorb and retain that moisture longer, so you don't have to water nearly as frequently as you might think to keep the lawn looking really good. So there's some good options out there, Will.
And we're all just hoping that we see some moisture coming from the skies too, which would be really, really a blessing.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So when I was out planting trees, I was planting in some spots where we had some trees previously, and so there were a lot of roots in there. So if you've got landscape that's well established and you're trying to plant plants and you've got roots all over the place, I was using a shovel. It's called the Root Slayer. And if you want a really cool Father's Day gift, this is one of the most amazing shovels ever. It cut my workload down by probably half, maybe even more, because it's made for getting through soil that has a lot of roots in it. So it's spade shaped, so it's very angular, and it has almost a chisel blade on the tip, and so it's great for cutting through smaller roots. But then along the sides of the shovel, it's serrated like a saw. And so it just cuts into roots faster and easier than any other shovel that I've ever used. And it was amazing for digging through some of these areas, because I started with a regular shovel and I just about killed myself trying to dig in through some of these areas. I mean, I was just sweating like crazy. And it was in the evening when it was cooler too, and I was just sweating like crazy. And I was just like, I got to get the Root Slayer. And so I grabbed that and started doing it, and I was digging the holes in less than half the time that it was taking with the traditional shovel, because it was just so much easier to loosen that soil up and cut through those root systems. So great tool for Father's Day. And of course, Anderson's, we've got gloves, some really nice leather gloves, goatskin gloves, and just to protect your hands with. But traditionally in the years past, we've for Father's Day, wind chimes make wonderful gifts, and bird feeders. We've got some awesome bird feeders. Got some great furniture in the store as well too. Some nice outdoor furniture that could be fun for a patio or a deck or something as well too, that dads might like as well. So, and a sprayer for Will.
All sorts of great gift ideas for Dad for today and for Father's Day weekend coming up. And let's take more calls. We've got Joan, who has been holding on line. Joan, you're on the line now with Mark Anderson for the Garden Guy.
Hi, Mark. I've got a question about the coconut core, or whatever it's called.
Yes.
Anyway, I've got a big bale of that, and I'm just wondering what the whole extent is that I can use it. Can I plant right in it? Can I mix it with soil? Or I have a dappled willow that I'm worried about keeping wet when I plant it, and I'm just wondering if that can be really incorporated into the soil, or if that's too much.
Yes to all of the above. So the coconut core, once you hydrate that up, use it just like you would peat moss. But the great thing about the coconut core is it's more absorbent, and so it will hold more moisture than the peat moss will. And since it's a little coarser and more fibrous, it will last a lot longer. So it's wonderful to work into soil to try and condition that soil, improve its water absorption and retention as well too. So it's great to mix in with soils. You can start seeds right in it. So a lot of the growers will use a coconut core if they're doing microgreens, because it holds so much moisture. It really gets the seeds to germinate a lot faster. So I use it right out in my garden for germinating carrots and beets. I use it over the top of my squashes, melons, cucumbers, because it just helps those seeds come up so much faster. And it just works great to hold that moisture, and doesn't wash away as easily as the peat moss does, because it's coarser, it's more textured, so it acts as like a filter when you're using it. But if you were to mix that into your existing soil and then use that soil to backfill for a plant that you were just planting, whether it's a tree or a shrub, that would be an excellent use for the coconut core. It's going to stick around for quite a few years before it starts to really break down. So.
Well, that's great. One other quick question. I know that so many of the not insecticides, but the kills all and things like that, you can't use when it's hot temperature. Can you not use it now till fall, or can you do it when the temperature of the day is lower?
The Kills-All and Roundup and Decimate, they all work very well in higher temperatures. I would, personally, I would spray when it's cooler in the evening. When it's not so hot. I don't like to spray in the middle of the day. But very, very effective. In fact, they work faster the hotter it is. And so as the plants metabolize that product, it really knocks them down a lot faster. So don't worry about using Kills-All or Roundup or the new Decimate. It will do a really great job. And remember, they kill everything. So grasses and weeds. It'll take out everything. It's non-selective. It's your selective herbicides you got to watch out for. So it's 2,4-D and it's Trimec and Weed Free Zone. Those types of products. We start getting up into the 90s. It can burn your grass when you use those when it's too hot. So you have to be very careful when you're spraying for, like, say, dandelions or clover or even morning glory in your lawn, because the higher the temperatures, the more volatile that product becomes. It can burn the grass, it could drift and damage nearby plants as well, too. So be very, very careful with your daytime temperatures with selective herbicides, like ones you're going to use to kill broadleaf weeds in your lawn. But your non-selectives like Roundup and Kills-All and Decimate, it won't matter at all. So that'll work great.
So the Kills-All and things won't drift even if you do them in the heat?
They can, but like I say, if you spray in the evening when it's cooler and when there's no breeze, it will have been absorbed and be adhered to the plant quite well. By the time it gets hot again the next day, it shouldn't be any problem. So just make sure you use a good surfactant with it, anti-drift product. There's a new one that High Yield has. It's called Herbicide Enhancer, and not only is it a surfactant, so it'll help it absorb and spread that herbicide through the plant, but it's got an anti-drift mechanism in there as well too, so it'll keep it from drifting. So it's a great additive to use to make your herbicides more effective, but also to keep them safer so they're not spreading to your other plants you don't want to damage. So.
Oh, good. And will the Weed Free Zone, will that not damage your lawn then if you do it in the evening also when it's cooler, or is that not good to use at all?
As hot as it is right now, if you spray and it's 75 degrees at night, which would be perfect. But if it goes to be 95 the next day, it could still damage your grass. And so usually you want to watch for a 24 to 48 hour period of time when your temperatures are down in the 80s, and then you'd be fine to use the Weed Free Zone. But if you spray when it's cool at night and it turns 100 degrees the next day, it's probably going to damage. So I would avoid that if at all possible.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. And
You're
happy
welcome.
Father's Day.
Hey, thank you so much. And thanks for calling this morning, Joan. You have a wonderful weekend.
And that clears up the phone lines at 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. Joan brings up a good point, Mark, and that really with the weather that we've had, best time to go out and treat your lawn or spray for weeds, spray for insects. Really, I found last night, right about 8 o'clock, the wind had died down. There wasn't any wind. Yep. It was just cooler, so you're not going to have any of those hot temperatures causing the insecticides or whatever you're using to possibly drift. We have had some strong winds, though, earlier this week, and, of course, that's why I was putting mine off, just because, you just really just don't want to be using any sort of insecticides or lawn killers or insect killers when the wind is really picking up like we saw earlier this week with those high, hot, dry winds that were coming in at night. But last night and the next couple of nights actually are supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah, and you're spot on, Will. It's like I prefer to spray in the evening, so I'm usually out there between 7 and 9 o'clock when it's much cooler and it's more comfortable for me.
Yeah.
I've never had the insecticide complain about me spraying when it's too hot outside, but I definitely complain. So I always try and do evenings. It seems to be much more effective. And same thing with insecticides as well, too, because a lot of times the insects are very, very active at night. And so if you can get that application put on just as the sun's going down, that's when it's going to be most effective, because those insects are really becoming active as the sun's going down. And so evenings for me have always been the best time of day to spray. And of course, it's also the best time of day to water as well too. You want to water in the evening so that water can penetrate deeper into the soil. It'll absorb it. It'll hold it there longer before it gets hot the next day, and before you have any type of evaporation going on. So it's just a better time to be outside running around. Mornings are really good too, but then you got the day heating up afterwards after that.
Yeah. And it's been heating up so quickly. I mean, here we are. It's already 75 degrees outside the KVNU studios. So you really just don't have a whole lot of time in the morning. Now, we talked about lawns earlier, and we still have time. We could probably squeeze in another call, 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. We were talking about lawns earlier, talking about treating them with Hydrotain. What about, with people cutting back on watering a little bit, what about fertilizers for a lawn, just to kind of help it get through these next few weeks when it's going to have less water and be so dry?
Yeah, we definitely like to recommend a fertilization just as the heat's really kicking in, and that usually happens around 4th of July. It's happened earlier this year, but it's a great way to keep your lawn healthy and where it can absorb and retain and hold the moisture a lot longer by fertilizing. And if you fertilize at the right time, in the evening when it's cooler, make sure and get that watered in. Your lawn's going to absorb that water better. It's going to pick up that fertilizer, and as the grass grows, it will stay healthy longer. It'll make it so it's able to utilize the water better. It will stay green a lot longer. It won't go dormant as fast. So this is a time of year where we really want to start raising our mower blade up as high as we can. Let the grass grow longer. It's going to shade the soil. It's going to keep that moisture in the soil a lot longer. Your grass won't stress as fast and as easily as if it's short, or if it's just been mowed. It's more likely to scald a little bit. So fertilizer right now, a water aid product like the Hydrotain or like our Back to Green. It's a new product that is made right here in Utah. It's called Back to Green. It has a wetting agent in there, as well as some compost, as well as a little bit of iron to really green the lawn up and get it looking good. That compost helps the soil absorb the moisture better, and the wetting agent allows water, when you apply it, to penetrate deeper into the soil and hold it there longer, so you lose a lot less water to evaporation when you use a product like the Hydrotain or the Back to Green. So it's going to be a great aid to help us this summer to keep our lawns looking good with maybe half as much water as what we've been applying in the past. So great way to really help with that.
And if there is a silver lining to this hot temperatures, or the hot temperatures that we've had over the last few weeks, is that I don't think anybody's having to mow their lawn as often as we've had to in years past, because we mowed our lawn a week ago. It's been over a week, and it still looks like we just mowed it. Lawns are just really not coming up fast at all. So we're just not having to mow it.
Yeah. There is a really cool new product that's out, and it is called Slow Mow, and I've got it at Anderson's, and we haven't promoted it a lot yet because we haven't used it, but it is made to regulate the growth of your grass, and so it'll actually slow the growth process of your grass down and help it retain a lot of that strength a lot longer in the grass. So it's really great at promoting the health of your lawn. But it slows the growth down, so you don't have to mow as much. So the product kind of suggests that if you use it, it lasts for, I think, 4 to 6 weeks, and it will really slow the growth of your grass down, so you're not mowing as frequently. And that may be a really great product to help with our drought conditions this year. So if you're not mowing as much, it's not growing as fast, it should stay green a lot longer as well, because it's not losing so much moisture every time you cut it. So
Might be a perfect gift for Father's Day, because every dad would love to cut back on mowing the lawn a few times here and there. We've got just one last minute, Mark, and let's go back and talk about just a few gift ideas for Dad. You mentioned those goatskin gloves. It was about a year ago that I picked up a pair of those, and ended up getting a couple more pairs to give to my daughters. Love those. And what other gift ideas do you have at Anderson's?
They are amazing. They are amazing. We've got a great selection of roses in stock still, and whether it's a rose or a flowering shrub or a tree, those make some great gifts for fathers as well too. Like I said, some great tools. We've got some amazing hand pruners, loppers, anything that's going to save those dads a little bit of work out there in the yard. Tools can really be very effective. And I mentioned my favorite new tool, the Root Slayer.
The Root Slayer.
Awesome. Yeah, it has an awesome shovel, and it has a really cool name as well too. So we like the Root Slayer. But we do have some beautiful chimes to decorate your yard with that sound wonderful, some amazing chimes. Bird feeders are a lot of fun. My wife got a bird feeder for herself for Mother's Day, and we've got it outside of our window. And it's been a lot of fun watching the birds find the feeder and come in and eat as well too. So some great options for some Father's Day gifts at Anderson's right now.
Well, Mark, been great to have you joining us remotely. Have a happy Father's Day, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Wonderful. You too, Will, and thanks so much for helping out on the show, and we'll be back again next week with another edition of The Garden Guide.
News at the top and bottom of the hour. News at the top and bottom of the hour. News Talk KVNU, Logan, 610 AM at